Dr. Rex, you can start. I think not many will come.
Okay, sir. Okay. So, very good morning, dear learners. So, today we are moving to block 3 of MDI 4, that is post-colonial and emerging formations. So, how the migration or the diaspora communities formed pre-colonial period, that were the discussion in last classes. So we found that there is an indentured labor and colonial period. The British has forced the people to move wherever they have their formations of colonialism. So this was the conditions when we look into the pre-colonial period. So now the trends has been changed, and there are a lot of positive connotations on the diaspora formation. People move across the world, across the globe, uh, for us as a skilled or semi-skilled laborers, and there are a lot of organizations which look into the migration part and as well as the welfare of the migrated people. So we must be very thankful to technology and other policies and world organizations for that. Apart from that, how this post-colonial period, post-colonial has how the people are as a diaspora community enjoy the post-colonial period. That's our discussion today. And uh, so the concept of brain drain type migration. So very, very important concept when we look into the brain drain migration. What is a brain drain? It refers to the migration of skilled professionals from developing to developed countries. Right? Very, very important. Skilled uh, laborers or skilled professionals. When you say skilled professionals, they are like doctors, engineers, professors, all right, government officials, economists, policy uh, framing people, researchers, right? Which they perform as a main part of the nation's growth or nation's economy, so that they are skilled professionals, right? So that is the definition of the brain drain, right? So brain drain refers to the migration of skilled professionals from developing to developed countries. So, what is the global impact of that? That is our important aspect. So, affect social, economic, and political life in home as well as host countries. We need to understand it not only it's of uh, the home host countries, because they only develop the host countries, but also it is the uh, uh, home countries also gets benefit of this, right? Uh, the beginning 19th century in Europe, the establishment of University of Bologna, the first, and the 10 of Paris and Oxford and Carrefour results in significant migration of students and professors drawn from all comes of the continent to those study and research centers. So first people moved, the history says the people moved to other nations for educations, right? So we also sometimes see our political leaders or the people who so-called they say that the economist or somebody, we tend to see them, they have studied in Oxford University, University of School of London, or something like that. So when this are happening, it's because those were the beginner universities where they draw people from other countries, right? Come, let us come and study in our institute, so they welcome. And when today we are seeing people are from across developing or underdeveloped countries coming to India as a student to learn from IITs, learn from IIMs and the big universities in India. So now the government is open now to for foreign universities to open the campus in India, right? So this is the first scenario when this kind of brain drain migration is happening started. So the relationship between the creation of new informations and its application to economic activity is also essential, right? So we need to create a kind of the relationship, the application to economic activity. So the qualified migrations to highly industrialized nations are progressively integrating research processes with products and service production operation, which has not occurred in the preceding 2 centuries, right? So now the country is looking, especially the developed countries, looking for the research activities to impact in their country, right? So they need people from different countries who are well versed in their domain to come to welcome them to start a kind of research in economic and social aspects, right? So the objective of this course is to understand the meaning and implication of brain drain and explore the causes of brain drain in India and analyze the transition from brain drain to brain gain. So, what is it? Two connotations, how it differs, right? So, this is the main objectives of this course, this chapter, and India loses almost $2 billion annually due to the immigration of IIT professors. So Indian students studying abroad cost 10 billion in foreign currency outflows, and USA, UK, and Europe are top destination for Indian skilled workers. Right, so people move now. This is shifting due to the current scenario in US that the immigration is not that easy as few years back. So now it's a trend is changing, and this is the key facts of Indian connect with the developed countries, right? So the causes of the brain drain. So what is the causes of the brain drain that we need to understand? So the cause of the brain drain, if you look into, you need to understand the historical background of that. So in 1960s, the term brain drain became popular in exodus of skilled labor from several poorer countries, including India, to more prosperous countries like uh, US and US, UK, and all those things. So those with the scarce of professional skills such as doctors, engineers, and especially information technology specialists are of particular interest, right? So of the developed countries. So they need people because their population is less. You take Japan now. Japan is full of the people of elderly population. Now they are the youth in Japan is low, so they need people, and they welcome from other countries, right? So this kind of scarce professional skills are required. So the loss of skilled experts also represents the country's human capital. Very important as a student of diaspora and migration. We need to understand the skilled experts are the human capital of a country. If it is losses, then the country will shrink in many ways, right? So, which is a critical for a country's economic prosperity. And India's brain drain has several causes, each of which is different. So individuals and countries are typically cited as a source of motivation, with two aspects originating from each of them. So social environment may be the factor in some countries like lack of opportunities, political instability, right? So the economic depression, health risks are the motivating the push factors for the home countries to push them to other countries. So country in 1960s as such, India, it lot of poor and unemployment, right? Low health facilities are are there. So in host countries, rich opportunities, political stability and freedom, developed economy, better living conditions are the pulling them. So and apart from that, there will be a personal reasons like family influences, personal references, and explore. So I have everything in India, but I want to explore. So I want to go. I want to study my masters in UK. I want to study my masters in Canada. So what I have everything, but I'll go as a passion, a desire to explore and advance one's profession. So these are the various reasons why people from the developing countries move. It is not only because of poverty, it is also because of passion people move. So, considering these considerations, we can identify some of the factors contributing to India's brain drain as follows. First one is higher education, right? So, higher education is a limited research facilities in India, attractive opportunities abroad. So when you look into higher education, as per India has more than 35 universities compared to 500 colleges and 20 universities before independence, right? So now we have central universities almost in all the states of India. During 2011, Dr. Manmohan Singh's period, central universities were formed. So there are around 11, all the states has central universities, state universities, affiliated colleges, autonomous colleges, open universities, we have, and 20 universities which was before independence. So these days, enrollment is more than 111 billion students, more than 10 times before the independence, right? So hardly 40 percentage of them go to higher education. So before independence, the education was restricted. We know that restricted based on caste and economic conditions and all those things. So current system is more inclusive, which is 30 to 40 percentage of enrollment is happening in coming from lower caste and women, accounting of approximately 30 percentage of the total enrollment, which is appreciable for the government that is doing a lot of things for the enrollment of women in higher education, right? So the dramatic expansion of higher education has raised concerns about the sufficiency of studies, resources, institutional quality, and standards. So anyhow, people move to abroad due to students studying abroad increases, indicating the higher standard of living and the employment opportunities available abroad. So these two things are very, very important. The standard of education, even though India is having more educational institutions. So, what is the standard of education? So, a lot of accreditation goes, NAC accreditation, AICTU accreditation, and all those things. But do institution as standardized? Do all the colleges, whether it is located in rural community or urban community, has the infrastructure facilities? So that is consideration for the people to move abroad, and after education what is the status of employment. So that is the thing why the people move abroad. So higher education is the main factor. Next, employment. So India's human resources base is uh, comprised of skilled and semi-skilled workers as well as unemployment individuals, and we also look at see to it the underemployment, right? So people are underemployed. What do you mean by underemployed? So people are not getting the job as for their education. So in some states, when they are called for a very very low grade work, right? In mortuary, in the government hospitals, the PhD candidates were also applied for that post. So look at the scenario of underemployment in our country, right? Which is the job for a 10th passed or failed students. A person from the PhD background is applying for it, right? So probably the poor educational standard of that person, or unemployment that is prevailing. So poor working conditions, low salaries in India was better wages versus better wages living standard abroad, right? So people get good salary outside. So it is obviously people even take a loan and pay for their flight and everything, visa and everything. They move for the better job. And that is the main reasons why people move, and lack of opportunities. So the researchers are funded and equipped to conduct research in developed countries, which may be another factor that attracts those who lack these opportunities. So I am a good researcher. Why can't I go and do kind of conduct a research in abroad in terms of society, in terms of science and everything? So most scientists in developing countries lack laboratory facilities, and we need to acknowledge that. And researchers are frequently unable to obtain adequate funding, right? So we are unable to obtain adequate funding. There is no funding resources to conduct a research, and a lot of things are there. As a result, when developed countries offer these facilities, researchers and scientists naturally prefer to migrate to them. So if you look into the fund for NGOs or various websites, you find a lot of funding opportunities. The foreign countries, the developed countries, are doing so for the citizens of those countries to conduct a research to understand what is going. So internationalization of the knowledge creation, rapid expansion of research and development activities have resulted in diversification of receiving countries. So the researchers or knowledge are internationalized. Means you need not to go somewhere and do your research there. You can get funding, write a proposal from here. You can do a get a funding, and you can do a conduct a research by sitting here. And historically, highly skilled Indians migrated in large numbers to the United States and United Kingdom for that reasons. So in the 2000s, new non-English speaking destinations in Europe emerged, including Italy, France, Germany, and others. Additionally, number of skilled Indian migrants moved to Australia, Canada, and New Zealand increased than US and US countries, right? USA, right? So the lack of opportunities are the main reasons when you look into the aspect of the migration, right? So these are the main reasons when we look into the perspectives of why the people move from India is first is a higher education and employment and lack of opportunities. Very, very important to know, right? So economic and social impact. What is the economic and social impact of this migration, right? When you look into that, Indian migrants in different parts of the world, we also look as per 2015 census, Saudi Arabia accounts 24.6 percentage of the uh, Indian migrants, followed by UAE, USA, and Kuwait, Oman, and other countries. So Saudi Arabia accounts 28 lakhs of Indians, accommodate 28 lakhs of Indians in Saudi Arabia, and 20 lakhs in UAE, and USA stands 12 lakhs, that is 11.2 percentage, right? So this is the conditions when we are looking into the data on the migrants situation, migrants number in uh, other countries, right? So economic loss of skilled human capital, reduced returns on educational investment, right? So economic and social impact and social, the brain drain widens inequality between developed and developing nations, right? So that is the main social and economical impact. So challenges for skilled migrants, right? So what are the challenges for skilled migrants? First one is the recognition of credentials, right? Limited acceptance of Indian qualification abroad. So you, when you want to go to UK, US, or Canada, those countries, you need to get recognition for your credentials. Means your qualification should be accepted. For example, you might have studied social work, for example, I have given for my credentials. So they said MSW, Master of Social Work, is a postgraduate diploma in social work according to Canadian accreditation. So I have done masters, but for them it's a postgraduate diploma. For me, if I put a PhD, they take as a earned PhD. So discrimination, ethnic bias, and glass ceiling issues in host countries, right? So there is a bias, discrimination is happening. So you are from India, so you are from this country. So this kind of glass ceiling is happening, and emotional struggles, separation from families, and integration challenges. So there should not be an emotional struggles that should happen. Uh, that is happening because of the separation from families and integration challenges, but it might have curbed nowadays due to technological development, because if I want to meet or something like that, I can just call and have a video call. But even though henceforth, but there is a emotional separation that is happening due to this migration. So what is uh, the government initiatives when you look into migration and all those things? So uh, we have looked into that students from India are significant source of labor in West countries, and Indian students play a significant role in migration, and well-educated uh, Indians, and increased Indian migration to the European Union as the favorable policies. So India is a source of youthful and well-educated workers, right? So Indian immigrants who became citizens of the European Union, right? Students from India are significant source of labor force for Western countries, the data says, and increased Indian migration to European Union as a result of favorable policies, right? These are the various reasons. But what is the government is doing it? Okay, when we look into the governmental perspective, so retention programs, Ramanujan Fellowship, Vajra Faculty Scheme, and Inspire, Skill Development, Investment, Research, and Innovation under Make in India. So these are the government initiatives to keep the brain drain in India. So well skilled laborers in India. So if you do conduct a good research, be in India, we are ready to fund. So government is funding for them to not make them to move some other countries to show their knowledge or exhibit their knowledge. So from brain drain to brain gain. So return migration. Returns contribute skills, expertise, and networks to home countries, right? So return migration, they go and return to their home countries. And emerging hubs, cities like Bangalore and Hyderabad are innovation centers for expatriates, right? So they are bringing, the government is bringing hubs for cities like Bangalore and Hyderabad to have a kind of people of brain drain. You have that in Hyderabad, we have a technology is booming, and there is city of technology is Hyderabad, where people are involving in kind of computer engineering, or doing research on engineering field and other resources sources. So theoretical perspectives. So dependency theory, that is core nations benefit at the expense of peripheral developing nations. World system theory, migration reinforces inequality between developed and developing countries. So what these two theories are broadly look into. So dependency theory given by Frank, right, explains a link between core and periphery, that is developing in one hand and development or underdevelopment on the other, right? So when dependency theory explains that when this kind of brain drain is happening, there is one hand there is the development, there is periphery in one hand, and development and underdevelopment countries in the other. So here core represents the wealthy and developed countries, while periphery represents underdeveloped and developing countries, right? So when this theory, this dependency theory, flow from the periphery to the core, which leads to the development of the core at the expense of periphery, right? So means the development happens right at the core of the developing nations, the peripheral nations. So you take the resources, the human resources from the developing nations, due by using their push factors like low wages or not recognition or something like that, and take those good brains to your country at the loss of uh, the resources that you are taking from the peripheral countries. It's a developing country, you develop your countries, right? So the dependency theory explains that this leads to the development of the core at the expense of the periphery, right? That means a rich becomes a rich by exploiting the poor. So dependency theories argue that the massive and persistent poverty in the third world is caused by the exposure to the economic and political influence of the industrialized countries. So they use these two terms: industrialized countries means the developed countries, right? So the third world countries is caused by the exposure to the economic and political influence of the industrialized countries. They argue that the lack of industrial development in the developing countries is due to its economic resources being drained northwards towards the metropolitan centers, right? So it is because of their resources are taken, right? So in terms of brain drain resource, like that means the skilled human resources which flows from the periphery, that means underdeveloped or the developing countries to the core areas, that means the developed countries leads to further development of the already developed nations at the expenses of the diversion of the skilled human resources from the developing countries, right? So core wealthy countries take uh, people from other countries, and the core wealthy countries are gaining them brain drain, the human resources from the developed countries, raw materials they are taking, political support they are taking, debt repayments and goods payments. On the account of it, they are taking this people from the poor countries. In return, what they are giving, that is very, very important. So in the wealthy countries, in return, taking them the brain drain, raw materials from the peripheral poor countries, what they are returning to the country, they are returning manufactured goods on heavy tax, right? And they are giving some aid, support, and they are polluting industries, and they are providing some political and economic ideas, right? So to make those countries, even those separate country, they make them who those should rule that country and how to make them to come into power, right? So these are the core uh, uh, return from the wealthy countries to the peripheral countries. When you say peripheral countries, it's the developing countries or poor countries, as Frank's uh, dependency theory explains. So, since the skilled human resources have already been shifted to the developed countries, the source country may not be able to reap the benefit of their skilled manpower. That is what will happen. So it condemns the economic growth in the source country, and is investment made in the education by the government for the people of the country would not receive much benefit out of it. So therefore, as compared to the expenses incurred on skills and training of the individuals, the country does not gain in terms of returns targeted towards the growth in national income. And you see some data says that those who study in IITs and IIMs, after their course, they move to abroad uh, for their higher education or employment. There is a certain commendable data number or moving abroad for their uh, work. So, which is the loss of the country because they are not able to utilize their wealth, their knowledge in terms knowledge and wisdom in contributing to the country. So another theory is a world system theory developed in the year 1970s by Immanuel Wallstein. Right? He emphasized that the capitalized division of labor is the where the capital division of labor as a central process which may lead to capital accumulation, right? So the labor is divided based on their wealth, right? So he talks about twofold division of labor, where different social groups are given different access to resources within the nation state, and where different nation state are given different access to resources in the world market, and both are governed by power. So you have a power. So in the twofold division of labor where different social groups are given different access to resources. First one, he says that since I am a particular social group, I am given certain access only to the resources, right? If I am a poor, I cannot go and do my studies in a reputed institutions. If I am rich, then I am. If I am a particular caste, then I am not. If I am in a particular caste, then I can access to that. So the resources, access to resources is different based on the class system, geographical location, and the wealth we have. That is the first one. Where within the nation state and where different nations state are given differential access to resources in the world market. So you are from the particular state, so you are access to the world market at this level. So now you see that US is in a 2 weeks before, if you buy crude oil from Russia, all the countries will be given 100% taxation. So you need to access crude oil from the set market dictated by US, right? So that is the developed countries which is doing. So both these are governed by power. That's what world system theory by Emmanuel Wallstream proposing. So he divides the world economy into three segments: core, semi-periphery, and periphery. Right. So core is the source where there's all the goods, resources, right? And from there only it goes everything. Core are the developed countries and are the advantageous geographical positions. So semi-peripheral countries are the intermediaries who are either core in declining phase or periphery attempting to improve its position in the world economic system. So these countries retained limited by declining access to international banking system and production in high quality of manufacturing products, right? So and peripheral countries are the least developed countries which are exploited by the core for their cheap labor, raw materials, and other goods, right? Like some African countries, right? Uh, or which are very, very poor countries in terms of that. So in the world order, the core being there at economic political advantages position like US enforces unequal changes between the core and the periphery to produce and maintain inequality between the nations. So this power enables them to gain control over the international commerce and extract capital surplus from the trade for their own benefit. Right? So their power in the world economic orders enables them to exploit the environmental and peripheral region, dump dangerous goods in their environment, abuse their consumers and workers, imposes taxes and quotas which may work for the advantages of the core and the expenses of periphery. So at the expenses of periphery, this core countries like developed countries are growing and they are dumping their e-resources something to their areas. So under the world system theory, brain drain can be interpreted as a measure aimed towards the development of the core by absorbing the highly skilled and trained minds from the periphery and creating a vacuum of the periphery region, right? So they are taking the resources and creating a vacuum, creating the emptiness in the peripheral regions, which are the developing nation. So such an economic world economic order encourages people from the periphery and semi-periphery to move to the core. Because as a citizen, as a person, which I don't have employment, I definitely move to that country. I without knowing that they are exploiting my nations. So, which reinforce the existing unequal economic order where the periphery remains underdeveloped and inequality prevails. Right? So, very, very important theories, these two. Whereas the dependency theory and world system theory. Core nations benefit at the expenses of the peripheral, and migration reinforces inequality between the developed and the developing regions. Right? So, what is the future pathways? Right? So when you look into the internationalized, nationalized, and globalization model, the neoliberal, the rationalistic logic, that is internationalist model response, such as uh, importance of human capital, the agency of workers to respond as per the labor market needs, and all those things, right? So Challenges faced by skilled migrant. So what is the challenges they face, right? So that is very very important when you look into the life of the skilled migrant in brain train. So since most of these countries the entry is based on skill shortage in their labor market, and it requires certain of set of skill tests or fulfillment of eligibility criteria by the applicant, right? So, however, by the time a person actually arrives in the destination country, there may not be any skill shortage by them. So, this may have lead to skilled persons being pushed to margins where, in order to survive in a new country, they were forced to get themselves absorbed in an informal labor market, which may not be in the sync with skill set by the processes. So, time lag. So, if you want to go to Canada, if you want to go to some US countries, you need to write a lot of tests, TOEFL and everything. Apart from that, you should test your skill. So a lot of test is there before you enter into those countries. So this makes, before we enter to the labor market, they are gone, and due to that, they were given in the unrecognized labor market or informal labor market to work, and to going to the home countries, they were forced to survive there. So the recognition of credentials, as I have said earlier, there is a major setback in the skilled migration in terms of recognition of their educational qualification, right? They need to pay a lot in order to standardize their skill, their education, and everything. And similar is the case with work experience, where certain work experience may not be even recognized in the destination country. If those who have applied for kind of jobs you might have experienced, right? So there is no commonly acceptable international standards for educational qualification which is recognized by the institution or the employees across nations. So each nation has a different opinion on it. So another one is a discrimination. So discrimination of the workers based on their ethnicity as well as and other the practice where certain sections of the people are not allowed to move upward in the work structure hierarchy, staying away from the family. So challenges faced by sending and receiving other countries are highly, right? So what is the brain drain from brain gain, right? So migration to West Asia. Uh, so migration to West Asia involves over 30 million Indians, right? Uh, right. We have 1973, the initial migration linked to trade and oil exploration. After post 1973, oil boom attracted a large number of Indian laborers to West Asia, right? So recent trends: decrease in migration 2014 due to economic slowdown, right? And the cause of migration is high demand for labor during West Asia's infrastructure boom, and we have a better wage and living conditions compared to India, and limited opportunities and unemployment in India during 1970s and afterwards. And profile of migration: unskilled labor, domestic work, and construction jobs dominate, right? When they move to the West Asian countries like Saudi Arabia and all those things. Skilled workers, nurses, technicians, and professionals in engineering and medicines are next, and entrepreneur, business people contributing to economic activities. So, what is the working conditions there? So, exploitation, poor working conditions, unpaid wages, confiscated passports. We need to read newspapers regarding that. We get a lot of news regarding poor working conditions in uh, East countries, even though a lot South Asian East countries, even though we see the the migration to those countries are high as per the data. So living conditions overcrowded and unhygienic labor camps, and Hafala system, restrictive sponsorship system contributing to worker vulnerabilities, right? So socioeconomic impacts on India: remittance boost to local economics, reduce poverty, especially in the states like Kerala, because Kerala is full of people move abroad. Okay, you can find all the Kerala in all the countries. So cultural changes: migrant families experience significant societal shifts. Government policies: so ECR immigrant check required, safeguards less educated workers. And regulated recruitment. Government agencies manage recruitment in like high risk sectors like domestic work and nursing. And indigenization policies in host countries like Southeast Asian and Nizahat reduce reliance on foreign labor, impact increased return migration of Indian workers. So countries or state is looking into take the people back and make them to have a better job in India. And the challenges during COVID-19 very very important. There are a lot of job losses, wage theft, right? So new term we have come up. There is a wage theft and increased return migration due to economic disruption. So wage theft cases during the pandemic were especially prevalent in GCC countries, right? So wage theft in a sense they will only get the wage and they won't pay you amount. So reverse circular twice or multiple migration. So reverse or multiple migration involves the movement of individuals back and forth between home and coast countries, an increasing trend of multiple migration due to globalization, right? So objective is to understand reverse and circular migration, analyze the socio-economic impacts of return migration. So what is the key fact? Fact is that defined as returning to the home country after living abroad for at least a year includes temporary returns, permanent resettlements, and secondary migration. Causes of reverse migration like economics, there is a job losses, limited opportunities abroad, or better prospects at home, so that there is a causes of reverse migration. The personal, there is a family reunification, or you settled everything, you don't want to go back, and cultural ties after marriage. Sometimes people won't move, and retirement, and policy driven visa changes or restriction in host countries. Sometimes you see in China, 2 or 3 days back, after 5 years, the visa is allowed. So that those may be the reasons why they are like as a policy they are back. And the circular migration movement between home and host countries in multiple times after a year or within a year. And guest workers in Germany will with return rates exceeding 60%. So if you go to German guest workers in Germany, they move, right? So impact on home societies, positive transfer of skills, knowledge, and remittances boost local economies. Negative is reintegration challenges and social adjustment for returns, right? So that is the another problem, because after 10 years or 15 years they return to India, they will have a lot of problems in adopting the country's rules and regulations and all those things. They always compare, and there are a lot of psychological disturbances they face. And the government policies, skill development programs to utilize returns expertise, instant tax benefits, and entrepreneurial support for returns. Because as we have discussed in the earlier class, those who are returning from other countries are more eager to start their entrepreneurship, because they take more risk based on their experiences and based on the economic conditions they involve in. A kind of entrepreneurial activities. So challenges, as you have said, recognition of foreign qualification and experience, difficulty reintegrating into the local workforce. So they might have done some studies in foreign, and the recognition of those foreign qualifications is a little bit difficult in India, and reintegrating into the local workforce is also difficult. So emerging trends in migration is a globalization increases circular and multiple migrations. Skilled workers move frequently for better opportunities and career growth. And policy recommendation foster global professional networks for knowledge sharing, support research on evolving migration patterns, improve reintegration programs to utilize migration and expertise. So these are the main concerns when you look into this. All right. So when we are looking to the from brain train to brain gain, we need to look into the areas how the country need to look into make the brain drain to when they are returning to the India. There is a brain gain that promotes development. Okay, so brain exchange, right? The country like Europe is intra-European, resulting in a brain exchange. So they can't they take their resources They take their expertise. Okay, so this is the facilitated. We need to take their internal labor market and labor force. So brain drain migration has both been criticized as well celebrated by the people of the country. So it has been criticized because brain drain leads to drain of wealth to the foreign country. Right? So they take the wealth. Drain means taking the wealth. However, the knowledge, exposure, and expertise gained from the foreign land can further be used to nourish the home country, making it as a brain gain. So they brain drain the people go other countries, they the resource, the wealth of their the knowledge is wealth. So the knowledges is are used by the developed countries, but they come back. When they come back, there is a brain gain because they're economically empowered as well as their knowledge expertise they have learned. So the external effect of the same has also led to the development of many private engineering colleges, IT consultant firms, hiring workers to send for foreign countries. So these are the things we need to look into when we are looking for that in terms of brain gain, right? So, so in this chapter we look into various aspects like policies of Indians in West Asia, right? And we also look into the working conditions of Indian workers in countries, especially in COVID-19, Indian governing government policies to manage migration, right? So socio-economic impact and indigenization policies, how to make them to be here, right? And also the kind of how the wage theft has taken place in some countries as COVID-19, especially in the Gulf countries, right? There are a lot of wage theft, and a lot of people are returned during that through Vande Bharat mission during COVID-19. People, 80, around 90 lakhs people are returned from the Gulf countries like United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Oman during the COVID-19, according to Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India during that stage, right? So very very important to understand all those things, and we also look into the reverse circular twice multiple migration. Why it is happening? What do you mean by reverse return migration? So types of return migration, impact of return migration in home societies, and multiple migration. Why it is happening? Like German, right? So these are the learning today. So any doubt?